There was another game, of course, this week. Sam Edozie scoring 7 minutes after coming on to earn us a point against Coventry. It's not one that's going to live long in the memory, to be honest. I mean, I don't really know where to start with this one, Glenn. I guess team selection for you. I know you were talking about, I think you wrote about this, just not enough pace in that front six. And I think you called that quite early on. This might be a problem. And so it proved to be.
Yeah, well, there was no Edozie, no Fraser. You had Adam Armstrong, who was the only player who could really raise a jog in that front six. So you had Aribo, Smallbone, Che Adams, Shay Charles. So it was pretty pedestrian looking, and I was just worried it would be a bit stodgy. And the first half was awful. It was basically all possession with no goal threat whatsoever. And again, it was really boring. I thought, we controlled the possession, but Coventry always looked more dangerous than us when they had the ball, and that was my problem with it. After half time, of course, we go 1-0 down in an incident that's cost Ryan Manning his place in the team, because he was sold a bit of a putt by Aribo and Smallbone giving him the ball under a lot of pressure, but he should have done a lot better with it. And I totally agree with what Russell Martin said. It's not so much the fact that he lost the ball; it's the reaction afterwards, where he was kind of keen to show he wasn't going to foul the guy. I mean, just bring him down.
Do you think he should have taken the card?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. Because once O'Hare's got the pass away to Wright, we're in trouble. We're in serious trouble. But there's another issue as well, because if you watch that goal back, Haji Wright cuts inside. I think it's Harwood Bellis. And at that point, someone else should have been, because he was obviously going to do that. Someone else should have been there. If you look at the midfield, they're just jogging back. And it was Shay Charles. So I do wonder if that's why Shay Charles dropped out of the team as well, with Russell Martin making mention of the fact we didn't react. I don't think it was just Ryan Manning. It was everybody else as well once we coughed up possession there. So, but after we conceded, a couple of subs on with Fraser and Edozie coming on, and we played with intent for about 20 minutes, got the goal back. And then straight after the goal, Joe Aribo put on narrowly over, and Adam Armstrong, as he'd been doing all day, hit another one over the bar. And then we kind of almost settled for a point from 80 minutes onward. We just seemed to stop playing with any intensity. So I found that very frustrating, because I thought Coventry would bang average. I know, people have said they're as good as Watford. No, they weren't.
That's not what Russell Martin said, was it? He was.
I know.
I don't know whether that was a bit of kind of self-preservation, but he was saying, what a great team, what a great outfit, and actually, what a point of that place is a good result.
Yeah, he's got a lot of respect for Mark Robbins, which I think is probably why he said that. He wasn't going to turn around and go, Mark Robbins' team are rubbish, because he likes Mark Robbins, and that's fair enough. But I thought, I can say what I like, so I don't know Mark Robbins, and I thought Coventry were absolutely bang average, and we should have won. And I came away from that game, and obviously it's different now because we've had a good win at the weekend, but I came away from that game thinking that's the sort of game that will put us in the playoffs, rather than having any chance of catching these top two. If it was a normal season, then you'd take that point and go, yeah, that's all right. But because we are trying to chase down two teams who are 10 points ahead of us, then at the time I thought that was disappointing. But then Coventry got a point against Leeds this weekend. Yeah. So maybe it wasn't as disappointing. Maybe I was just being miserable. But yeah, it was,
Sounds unlikely.
Absolutely. Yeah. Strange occurrence there. Strange occurrence. But, we moved on. We've moved on, and we've got 3 points a weekend. So happy days.
It was another terrible spell after the break, Alfie, and I thought we'd kind of seen the back of that. There was a few games, wasn't there, where we just, after the break, things weren't clicking for us, and it kind of felt like a bit of a throwback to that. I think they hit the woodwork, did they, before the goal? There was definitely, the signs were there, weren't they? They made one mistake, and then it was almost like the same mistake again, which led to the goal. So I know he wasn't happy, but it was a poor one to concede.
Yeah, I think to be fair, O'Hare came alive, didn't he, in that sort of start of the second half? Because I thought during the first half it was Hadji Wright and Ellis Sims who they spent good money on from Everton that would cause a lot of problems. I thought the way that they set up to sort of, again, we spoke about it, to disrupt Southampton, to play long ball from the back a little bit a few times. Hadji Wright and Ellis Sims, they were beating Bednarek and Bellis to quite a lot of those aerial battles. They were hounding down balls. They were quicker than the defenders and they were causing real problems. But then, like I say, O'Hare added that little bit of quality just after the break. But yeah, I think Russell Martin was really happy with the performance. The one thing that, I didn't think it was bad at all, to be fair. I thought the performance was fine. I thought it was a tough side. It's just off the back of dropping points at Watford as well that I think made it look worse. And Russell Martin said himself he thinks that the Leeds result has put it into perspective a little bit. The thing that worried me was the lack of control in the sort of last 10 or 15 minutes. I know I sound like a bit of a Russell Martin enthusiast there by saying that, but the game was all over the place in the final 10 minutes and nobody would have been surprised if they had won that. And then, maybe the momentum was cut a little bit, maybe the confidence a little bit shot. So they got out of there with a point, which I think on reflection is a decent point if it hadn't been for like Leicester and Ipswich running away with it. So yeah, I wasn't overly concerned by the performance or concerned by the result. I thought any point on the road is a decent one.
I thought, was there a great save by the keeper in like the 95th minute or something, just to keep us in it and rescue the point? So you're right, it is a point. Steve, it was a difficult watch at times, though, wasn't it? And then those subs made the impact with obviously Fraser coming on and then crossing for a dozy.
Yeah, we worked our way back into the game, having basically been given a kick up the arse by conceding, really. And it was frustrating that it took that in the second half for us to kind of wake up and start actually playing. Because actually, first half we created a lot of sort of half chances. I don't think the keepers actually had a proper save to make, but there's been a couple of sort of last ditch blocks from defenders and 2 or 3 where I think Armstrong hit one over narrowly over the bar, and there was another one that went just wide, and a couple of sort of other moments where we looked like, okay, right, we're forcing them back, we're creating openings, and they're basically defending last ditch. And teams can do that. You're not ever going to come up against a side that's just going to let you have it all your own way more often than not. So yeah, that sort of second half was just frustrating that it took the goal for us to kind of jolt into action. But then having equalised, we should have then gone on to win it really, but didn't really. As Glenn said, it kind of felt like I wouldn't say that we settled for the draw really on with 10 minutes to go, because the game was just mental at that point. It was just pinballing all over the place. There was neither side had any sense of control over it, which I think kind of suited Coventry more than us, because that's kind of what we're always after, isn't it? In the game is control of the tempo and where the ball's going. But yeah, we had no control whatsoever, and that was kind of 2 games in the space of 5 days where the midfield just collapsed in a bit of a heap. Which
they ended the match with Joe Rebo as the sole defensive midfielder, didn't they? It was that was it's just a bit of a mess, really, in all honesty. And that's kind of one concern, because obviously Flynn Downs has shown that he's been a little bit susceptible to these little niggles, little illnesses, little ailments and things like that. And he is going to miss the odd game. He's not going to be our James Ward-Prowse for this season, where he's going to play 90 plus minutes every single game. So we do need other players to step up in that position. Charles, unfortunately, hasn't really done it. The 2 games he's been given the opportunity, he was okay at Watford, I thought, but the game kind of passed him by on Wednesday, I thought, unfortunately.
I don't think Charles has got the fitness to play 90 minutes in that position. He seems to struggle a little bit against Watford. He seemed to struggle at the end of the game, and I felt the same when I was watching him play against Coventry. Yeah.
Does it just prove how integral and how important Flynn Downs is going to be, Alfie? That's 2 games that he's missed. Yeah. And then actually we're looking at we wanted a 7-point week, we got a 5-point week. Other teams have got a 9-point week, and he was the one that was really missing.
Yeah, I think like Steve says, and we know that, don't we? Nobody's surprised by that now. It's become very apparent that he is the glue, the sort of the kingpin at the bottom. I think the illness he had this week was just some kind of like neurovirus or some kind of flu, I guess, something like that. But it wasn't anything to do with his dodgy cooking where he gave himself poisoning with chicken liver or whatever it was back in the summer. Do you know what? You touched on it in your question to Steve a second ago, but it's actually quite the phenomenon what Ryan Fraser continues to do from the bench, in my opinion, because he hasn't set the world alight in his starts. He's been passable, but when he seems to come off the bench, it's a couple of games in a row now. He does make an impact, and it's a real weapon to have. So if Samadozi can keep that run of games, do the first 60 minutes, cause a lot of problems for their right back, score the odd goal, to bring on a weapon like Ryan Fraser, I think it's a real luxury item.
This is the thing with him, Glenn. We've talked about Fraser for quite a bit, but actually, when he has had the start, it's not really worked for him. And it's odd where someone comes off the bench to have an impact, they set up a goal, they might get one or two. You're obviously clamouring for them to start the following week, but actually, we don't really, at the moment, want to see him in the team. We want to see him coming on at 60 minutes when everyone else is starting to tire.
We had a similar thing at the start of the season with Sama Amamayor, didn't we? Where he looked excellent off the bench for 20 minutes. Yeah. And it was ironically against QPR, who we're playing next, where he started the game and really struggled. I think that's probably for different reasons, just being a youngster and stuff. But yeah, Ryan Fraser seems to have this weird thing of being able to do it off the bench, and I'm sure he would much rather be starting. But it's a bit of a problem for him that he continues to do so well in the last sort of 20-25 minutes of games. He adds a bit of directness, which I think we miss sometimes. I mean, Edozie provided it from the start against Blackburn, but Ryan Fraser came on, and he doesn't need to beat players. He hasn't got the skill. He hasn't quite got the skill to sort of go past players in no space like Edozie does. I always thought Edozie goes from sort of 0 to 100. He's gone, and the defender's sat on his backside. But with Fraser, he just seems to just find himself a yard of space. If you look at the goal that he laid on for Sekumara yesterday, it's just like, I'm going to find myself a yard. I'm going to put this ball across. And he seems to, he plays with brain. Not many wingers do. Sometimes you look at players, just quick players in general, you just think they're just quick, and then they just do everything at 100 miles an hour. He seems to, when he comes off the bench, he seems to know the right way to sort of slow down and then put the crossover and find, put the ball into a dangerous area. So unfortunately for him, I think he's going to carry on being the super sub at the moment.
Yeah, it's just a case of whether he's happy doing that for the rest of the season, I suppose. Let's do. Yeah, it does. I think he's just grateful to be in a team that's winning, isn't he? And playing against.
I think it might be quite boring to be a winger. Not boring, that's probably the wrong word, but a winger in this team, because Russell Mine is quite specific about what he wants in the final third from his winger. And it's not taking the ball with back to goal, spinning and beating the man. It's making continual runs in behind and hoping that you get it 1 in 10 or 1 in 12, which is what Adam Armstrong does so well, why he loves Adam Armstrong so much. And Samadozi does that. He has the ability to beat a man, and he will stand them up 1-1, but he also makes those continual runs in behind. I think when Ryan Fraser comes on, he's got an explosive pace and like a real low centre of balance, and he can really do that. So I think that's what he likes about him.
Even Aribo was making those runs yesterday.
Yeah. We're not short of candidates for Player of the Week. So before we move on to the QPR game, let's do Player of the Week. I mean, I'm going to chuck Stu Armstrong in there just because it's a great game yesterday. Steve, anybody else who stood out for you over I was going to say both games, but probably yesterday, let's be honest.
Yeah, I'll say Samadozi got the vital goal in both games. That's kind of, I mean, especially yesterday, kind of broke the back of Blackburn's sort of all-out defence system.
Alfie?
I think if we're going on Saturday, I would give, if I had to choose one individual player, it'd be Samadozi for the first half and Stewie Armstrong for the second half. But I will give a shout out to James Bree, as I mentioned. I thought he really was excellent. It was a bit of a surprise to see him taking set pieces, and not all of them were brilliant, but I just thought he did so much in the game. Opened up.
That first corner was absolutely atrocious.
Exactly, yeah. But I'll give him a shout.
We will also get onto the set piece coach as well before we finish. So a couple of names, Glenn. Anybody else that we should add to that list?
As Alfie said earlier, I mean, it's Samadozi. No point for him for anyone else really. But Jan Bednarek, I would say, as Alfie said, the way he's stepped his game up, and it was another, 2 very decent performances. Coventry game was difficult because of the way they set up and the way they played. But I I thought he stood up well. He was also excellent the previous week against Watford. So, Jan Bednarek.